Do you need to know more information about the cost of house construction to help you decide whether to renovate or sell? You might typically think of obtaining building cost advice from a builder, but did you know that's not the only option? You can also obtain independent cost advice on how much it costs to build your house plans and also simply your design ideas from a building cost estimator and also a quantity surveyor. Welcome to the Renovation Collaborative On the Tools podcast, where I interview industry insiders to find out practical information to help you renovate smarter. My name's Stephanie Skyring. I'm an Australian architect with 20 plus years of experience helping people create better, more environmental homes on any budget. In the first 4 episodes of this season, I'll focus in detail on house construction costs. In this episode, you'll find out what a building cost estimator does, what their services cost, and how they can add value to your next renovation or new build project. I'll be talking to highly respected cost estimator David Knight from Total Estimating Services in Brisbane. Good morning, David, and welcome to the Renovation Collaborative On the Tools podcast.
Good morning, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So firstly, can you tell me what a building cost estimator does on a typical house project?
Well, typically the clients, whether it be a builder or an architect or an owner, would send over the plans. We'd review those plans and make sure we've got enough information to give them back a pretty robust costing. We physically measure the drawing, so we'll work out how many lineal metres of floor joist you'll have compared to how many square metres of ceramic floor tiles you'll have. We then, against those measures, we put our market rates costed out. Then we have basically a costed bill of quantities from putting your side fence up to your final clean. So we're really building it on our desk, and we're providing a detailed estimate that a builder will need and uses to formulate a contract price.
So can you tell me what is the difference between a building cost estimator and a quantity surveyor?
Quantity surveyors are more commercially orientated. They're university and tertiary educated. They've got degrees. Cost estimators, you'll probably find, funnily enough, more cost estimators than QSs in the world. But the majority of cost estimators will be specialising, for argument's sake, a gyprock supply and place company will employ a cost estimator
yes, of course,
to work out how much metal framing, gyprock, plumbers, contract plumbers, contract electrical work, roof companies,
yes.
Every supply company, truss manufacturers and timber manufacturers will all have their own individual cost estimators. They don't employ QSs, but they'll train
yes.
a cost estimator. They'll have a building cadet on. Your larger builders will employ building cadets and train them in cost estimating. Back in 81, when I left school, I was thrown into an estimating cadetship at the old timber and hardware company called Robin Brown back in the day. So that's a long time ago, but I was trained in doing timber and hardware takeoffs that we would then supply to the builders, who were then tendering on jobs.
Oh, okay. Right. So it's a very different background, but it's very much more on the tools, isn't it?
It's
really?
all hands-on.
Yeah.
It's all hands-on.
So going back to building cost estimating, what size residential projects are they most commonly used on and most beneficial?
Beneficial, I think you would probably find the larger renovation jobs, circa $750,000 upwards. We see a lot of projects in the $1 to $2.5 million range in residential extensions and renovations. We see a lot of new larger homes, of course. We're predominantly used by builders and architects and owners who have got something that's fairly bespoke. So we never see a project home costing.
No. Well, that's sort of dealt with by the project home company, isn't it? They're controlled.
So they'll read their book and that's the price, where we'll read a plan and have to work out the price.
So thinking about what a building cost estimator cost includes, is that everything or what can it include?
It's everything that you want.
Okay.
You've got to, as an owner, you've got to be fairly clear what you want. Like if I get a job in, we'll ask them, is the pool included? Am I pricing this so you can compare it against the only builder you can find to do the job? Are you building it yourself?
Because I certainly know on projects that I've worked on and that I've had you doing building cost estimation on, often the clients will say, well, we'll do the kitchen, or they take out bits of it to try to, they'll have an IKEA kitchen or whatever they'll do to try to maintain costs. So you can sort of manage all that. So therefore, in summary there, so you are including landscaping or fencing or pool or whatever needs to be dealt with. It can be included in a building cost estimator's cost. How do you put a cost estimate together, and where does the price information come from? So both material prices and labour prices.
Yeah, well, we're a little bit lucky because we work for so many builders in Brisbane. They give us feedback. We get a lot of feedback from suppliers, so we're kept up to date with concrete, timber, windows. Again, builders will provide some numbers on aluminium windows, so we check all of our rates against the latest quote that we get.
Okay.
So we're constantly in our database manipulating price files. So if clients come back in a year's time and want something repriced, we just have to basically put it back in the system and push a button and
run it through the numbers.
Yeah.
I know that people, when they've got some plans, they'll often think that the first thing they'll do is think, I've got to go to a builder to get some costing advice. What are the benefits of going to a building cost estimator instead to get a cost breakdown and advice over a builder?
Well, primarily what you'll get from us is basically a more intimate knowledge about your job. We're independent. We will cost it the way we see it, so there's no emotion.
Yes.
We'll unfortunately tell you bad news
most
of the time.
Yes, all the time I find.
Where builders may not want to tell you bad news all the time.
That's so true, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's going to get you sooner or later. Best to do it before you spend a lot of money on your plans.
Yes.
And council applications. So it's knowledge is gold in this system.
Yes.
In scenarios.
Because I know getting prices myself from a builder, sometimes they'll give you a full breakdown, sometimes they'll just give you a bottom line, and you'll have to ask them, can you break it into trades? Can you give me something? Can I see some transparency? So that is the benefit of a building cost estimator, that you'll get a full, very comprehensive breakdown, in my experience, and that then you can take that apart and try to see where the costs are. Although having said that, people always think, where's the big cost? But it's never like that, is it? It's always just filtered across the whole thing.
It's death by 1,000 sword cuts.
That's exactly what it is.
And when it is over budget, it's the only way you can attack it to get stuff down. There is no magic wand.
I just always think it's just like reduce floor area is really the only way. Just build less.
That's probably the worst thing you can do.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, you're only taking out floor and a ceiling and a roof. You're not looking at the engagement of the claddings on the walls and the windows and whether they should be aluminium or timber. Have you used the site properly? And hopefully all of those things are sort of caught at the start and at the end.
I know, if I've already taken all of those out, there's nothing left but floor it.
and that's the problem with square metre rate. If your house comes out at $5,000 a square metre, I'll just take out 100 square metres. That doesn't work. It's probably less than half that you'll be taking out.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, my God. What are the solutions? Are we coming up to that? Just talking again, just a little bit further about the benefits of working with a cost estimator to get a cost. So I think particularly if you are going to get a single builder, like you've got one builder in mind, you're not going to get a tender. And I find often in this market in Brisbane, builders won't tender anymore. So many of them, because there's so much work out there, they're just like, we're not tendering. So your options are to choose a builder, and then you want to know, just for your own peace of mind, because the cost is so high, if you're getting market value. So then if you can get a building cost estimator's cost as well, I suppose that gives you some level of leverage. Do you find that you're used in that way very much, or not so much?
Leverage as such, but it just gives you the education you need.
So I suppose then, if you do get your estimate and you've got the builder, I'm just wondering how you would use that then. So you would approach the builder and say, well, look, I've got this cost.
I would, again, if you get a cost estimate done beforehand, you can ask the builder to then provide their information similar to the bill summary.
Oh, okay. So be very
makes it a lot easier to compare.
Be very open about it that you've got the estimate, and
because even when we've been asked to do tender verifications, we'll do a price for an architect or an owner
after they've got the price.
And then the builder comes in because the builder's over budget, not over budget. It's actually right price. It's just unfortunate that his right price is over the client's or the architect's
price.
budget.
Yes.
So we're trying to work out what's going on. So we'll price it, and then we'll have our bill summary. It will never match up to another builder's bill because everyone puts things in different spots.
Oh, they do. They absolutely arrange it in a different way. It's
so
like, yeah.
We then add things together to see where those differences are and try and explain where the differences are.
So thinking about working with a building cost estimator for a typical custom renovation or new house project, at what stages of the project would I get a cost estimator involved?
Ideally, somewhere between that sketch design and design develop stage.
I know working with you that you used to do preliminary cost estimates on earlier sketch design, and I now know because of the cost of construction being so high in Brisbane and the changing price that you might put a price together today on a preliminary sketch design and then the job wouldn't be built, hypothetically, start construction for another year and a half. And so both labour and materials would be increasing over that time, so that then you've started moving towards, putting together a full bill of quantities so you can feed in those changing numbers?
It is. It really, again, depends on where we slide into the equation. Again, if it's sketch design, we will still do those basic square metre rate early, what we call like an early cost plan.
Yes.
At that early cost planning stage, we're sort of using pricings that we've done or jobs that we've done in the past. So we're sort of calculating a bulk area on this drawing, using those rates and putting it on this job. But at that DD stage, we say, look, even if we don't have engineering, we don't have a schedule of finishes, we always recommend to get the bill of quantities done at that stage before you engage, before you go to the development approval if it's a small lot in the middle of Paddington.
That's right.
You've got to get those numbers before you spend all of that money.
That's right, because once you've got town planning approval,
it's painful to go back.
Yeah, because then you would have to get your town planning approval again, and it's all just really messy. So when you talk about a preliminary bill of quantities, that's different to the one at the tender stage, is it?
Yeah. So when we get involved at the tender stage, we've got complete documentation.
Yes.
We can spend a day going through the documentation without measuring a thing. Because if I've got 80 pages of specification and I've got 30 pages of joinery drawings, even though we know we'll provisionally sum the joinery, but on those drawings is all the construction detail that the builder needs to build around the joinery. So it's all of the carpentry and the gyprock and the lighting and all of that is very specific. So again, we've got to be every trade on the desk.
So we've got 3 stages there. I'm just trying to get you to sort of articulate what the difference is between those preliminary drawings versus the preliminary bill of quantities drawings.
For argument's sake, we might get a floor plan and no elevations.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that articulates it really well.
So if we get a floor plan without any elevations and we might do some desktop investigations through realestate.com or whatever, it's a renovation or whatever, we try and work out the land and access logistics. So from that we can and then understand, okay, we know the rough scope. Okay, if it's a lift and build and an extension job, we'll go back through our database and try and find a similar one and use those rates to calculate that job. But when we're doing a preliminary bill of quantities on that, that's developed sketch or that DD developed design stage, we will price that job.
Back to that very preliminary one, so that was hypothetically just a floor plan only. It might have been just trying to work out if a job was feasible on a site before you just do anything. Yep. It's like, look, quick layout, look at what we've got. Yep. Is this even going to stack or should we just sell? This is the renovate or sell type location, isn't it?
We still do those preliminary early cost plans.
Okay, so then you've proceeded a little bit further with that and you've got some layouts. You might have some elevations to go with those, loose elevations, an idea, a loose schedule, and that would be... We
could do the preliminary bill of quantities on that.
And that would still be before town planning approval?
Yes, most definitely. Before engineering. Because we see so many engineers' drawings on so many plans, we sort of can design sizes of steel beams.
That's right.
And we can put those in.
Yes, if it's got a truss roof, if there's skillion roofs, if you can work out the type of structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be very close.
So getting on to working with a building cost estimator, can you give me a rough guide to what I would expect to pay for a cost estimator service? So we're assuming that I've got some kind of a project with a construction budget over about over the 750, 800,000, and it's pretty easy to get there in Brisbane at the moment. So that sort of $800,000 job, I don't know how large that is. I mean, that could be anything depending on the site and the finishes, etc. But
it comes down to the difficulty of it. But
it does. Just a really loose range. It's just so people who don't know what a cost estimator does and they think, well, this could be really useful on my project. How much should I budget for those services?
Before coming here, we looked at our average invoicing for the last 12 months based on those smaller jobs, and they really ranged around about that $1,250 mark.
So that's preliminary cost on the sketch design.
Yeah. Yep. So then we looked at the design develop plans, and we're doing those preliminary bills of quantities. They're sort of coming in at nearly double. We're doing it economically because we're using our own internal resources. So we're not having to refer to engineers' plans or 10-page specifications. So we'll always ask the client, is it going to be a basic, medium, or a luxe finish? So we'll plug in those luxe finishes or a medium level of finish. They've got a fairly good indication of what the end result will be without going that far.
And so then moving on to the last stage, which is when you've got your full drawings, you've got your engineering, your soil test, you've got everything you need about the site. You will have maybe full schedules, you've got your cabinetry drawings, you've got all that information. That's full bill of quantities that would either come from potentially an architect or from a builder if you're doing the work for a builder to price for him. So that sort of
number, which gives you that sort of robust document that you can either, I hate to say it, but bash it over the head of builders and the banks.
Yes, that's right.
That's about a 50% on top of that middle stage. So that they were averaging out at about $3,500 to $3,600. So it was sort of like the 1,200 mark, the 2,400 mark, and then the 3,600 mark.
That's so helpful, and it makes so much difference. That is just money so well spent before you launch into construction at any stage there. Can cost estimators give advice for the whole of Australia, or are they more locally based? Like, how do they work? If I've got a property or something over in regional or in Sydney or somewhere, can I get you to give that advice?
Well, even if it's a quantity surveyor or cost estimator, they're all basically local knowledge. We all, if asked to do regional, we can refer to gazetted magazines that come out quarterly that tell us what prices are doing regionally. So what we normally do is if we're doing a job in Roma or Gundawindi, we'll price at Brisbane, and then we either attribute a zone allowance to it, depending on if we're doing the preliminary sort of estimating. But if we're doing like a tender for a builder in Gundawindi for a big house, we'll price at Brisbane, and then we'll go through every cost. We'll say, right, we're pretty sure the carpentry up there is going to be the same, but the block work and the concrete is going to be 30-40% dearer. So we can then change those numbers right at the end and then provide a more detailed cost for that zone rather than just a blanket percentage.
And I think things to bear in mind then, obviously, which you've just mentioned about the costs of transportation of materials out to regional areas. That's a really big cost, isn't it?
It's a big cost. We just did a very large home on Fraser where it was nearly 25%. Oh,
because everything has to go across in the ferry.
Yeah, and waiting times, like trying to work out, the worst case scenario on a waiting time for the gyprock delivery and the accommodation for trades.
Oh, wow.
It's, mind-blowing.
So my final question here, if I wanted to engage a building cost estimator to get advice on my renovation plans or whatever I'm doing, how would I start? You've told us the costs there, but just what information do I need to get together?
You've as much as possible.
Yes.
Obviously the plans to get like most clients that are referred to us will ring us and what do you do? We briefly go through what I've just basically discussed and then I'll ask them, look, just send the plans over so we can find out, because you won't know the questions you need to ask me until I look at what we've got, and then I'll be asking you what else have you got that we can have to make it more robust.
Okay. Thank you so much, David Knight from Total Estimating in Brisbane, for sharing your knowledge today to help everyone renovate smarter. Wow, what a fantastic interview. I've been working with David from Total Estimating Services for years, but I learned so much behind the scenes info today about how a cost estimator works and how they can really add value. To conclude today, I just want to draw your attention to 3 really important points. We covered so much today, but these are probably the 3 that I think will add the most value. The first and most obvious point was the benefits of obtaining independent cost advice. It's impartial, it's obligation-free. You can get a full breakdown of what's included in your job, so you get a really good education about what's included and what's excluded and what everything costs, so you can drill down on the design and find out how to reduce costs, assuming that you'll probably need to in this market. The second point was the importance of obtaining cost advice early in the design phase before you go too far, preferably at 2 points: at concept stage, just when you have rough floor plans, so you can get an idea whether to renovate or sell and work out if your project is even feasible. If it is feasible and you continue on, the next stage to validate those costs and make sure you're still on track is at design development stage. When you've got elevations, you've got floor plans, you've got a bit more information, but before you go to town planning approval and before you get too much detailed engineering input. Because if you need to make any changes, it's too expensive to go back after this point and have all that design redone. The third point was for anyone getting a price from just one builder. And it's the value of obtaining a cost estimate at tender stage to really find out what's included and excluded in your builder's price, to get a really thorough education of what's in there in case your builder only gives you a bottom line without much breakdown. If you decide to go this way, this should be a very open process with your builder, and you should let him know what you are thinking of doing, so that therefore when you get the estimate back, you're able to compare and talk about this estimate with your builder. In the next episode, you'll find out what a quantity surveyor does and get some further insights into building costing that will add value to your residential project, whether you're an owner, an architect, a building designer, or a builder. I'll be talking to quantity surveyor Flavio Costanzo from Flavio Costanzo and Associates in Brisbane. Thanks for listening to Renovation Collaborative. Sign up for the weekly wrap newsletter and get the concise podcast summary delivered straight to your inbox. Also, find the full transcript PDF edited into clear Q&A on the Renovation Collaborative website, renovationcollaborative.com.au.